What? Tell you what?
So Talit first, and then after Talit, what is?
After Talit, we're just praying the service until we get to the actual Torah service. That's when you're going to get the Torah handed to you, and that's when you're going to do the figure 8 walking around. Ken? No, he's a congregant. He's going to read. But you're doing the Aliyah for this. No, this.
So
How do I do?
So after
Before the reading,
after I walk around, do the figure Torah thing. What's next?
Then you're doing your Torah, your speech.
This?
Yep. And after that, then you take a seat. We're reading 2 different Torah portions.
So I know one sister reading. They're in here. Okay, so I'm fine. So it doesn't need. All right. Good. Okay. All right. I was
Then
getting.
we throw some candy at you. Your parents tell you how proud they are of you. Okay.
Michelle.
And then you take a seat for a little while until the Haftarah.
Okay, so she's reading Israel.
You read the Haftarah in English.
Oh,
By the time I get to
The Isaiah thing. This thing.
Yeah.
oh.
Okay?
Actually, I probably want to have that so I can still.
You want to look at it one more time?
Yeah.
It's actually
Yeah.
right here.
So my brother-in-law.
So grab one from the front right
Like
there.
Uber, basically.
So you're good?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was fun. That was a good time.
I'll call you.
It's just so classic, right? Like I was laughing because it's like, okay, well, we'll figure it out.
And then you do that. Then,
How much I am.
then you stay up. Because then,
I just really get it. Like, I really get it. Hold on, I'm getting
do
it.
this.
No problem.
You read Torah.
Rabbi said,
And Amy, yep. And then
what is the Torah?
it's fine.
that's the one that you just did.
I was trying to print it.
That's the one you didn't. Yep. That's the look to your head. That's okay.
Okay, so she's
Bottom
reading.
of the book,
Okay.
she doesn't do
Yep.
any of that.
Okay.
Started
Okay.
until the end.
When you do low to your head,
Okay.
that you do
My
that
sister's
second.
reading
So what I'll do,
prayer, so
as long as you know you're doing this at one point, you're doing this at the other, I'll tell you when to
tell
go.
Aunt Michelle
Okay?
her
So let's
prayers in
leave
the
this on
prayer
here.
book on page 259.
Yep, you're doing
What?
Tell Aunt Michelle her prayers in the prayer book on page 259.
Yep.
Where's Aunt Michelle?
And you're reading in between. Okay? It's in the Torah. In the Torah. Yep. That you can keep. Yep.
All right, so I'm gonna tell her.
They'll just go around separate. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so she's just reading.
So on this book it's
Jamie,
359.
excuse me.
All right, let me get her.
Just the English at the bottom.
Or if you want to grab a prayer book, this is what you're reading. Okay. You can start. Yeah. So
way.
you can start. Yeah. Start.
Yeah, but also, is mommy reading anything?
You guys can read together.
Yeah, you want to read together? But she can't
Oh,
see.
I have to get my glasses then.
Okay, but just take a look, that it's just this paragraph, not this one, just this
So
one.
we read it
Yeah,
together.
that's cute.
Well, I can't sit.
I'll just do it. You just stand up. Yeah, I'll just do it. One thing to start with. I'll just read it. You have glasses? Yeah.
Oh. Amy.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome and welcome to friends who are joining us from the Zoomiverse or the YouTubeverse. Welcome to everybody here especially. And to all the yummy little tiny people here today, tiny humans, hi. This is a very musical service. Lots and lots and lots of singing along. I'm not just saying that for the little yummy baby who's crying. I'm saying it for all of us. This is a service in which we really hope that you'll all participate and sing along, and then the kids will be happy too. 2 for the price of 1. Good morning, Rabbi.
Good morning, Cantor. So my name is Rabbi Katz. This is Cantor Greenberg.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Before we begin, just a few kind of logistical announcements to make sure that we're all literally on the same page and that we can all follow along. The first is that everyone should have grabbed one of these prayer books on the way in, as well as one of these little booklets. If you haven't, I'm going to give you a chance to go get it right now. Everybody has? All right. Diana Chipkin is our usher. She's gonna, if you have any questions, she'll make sure to answer them. Should you need bathrooms, they're outside to the right. If you need all gender bathrooms or handicap accessible, they're outside into the office toward the back. Should you need, for any reason, an emergency exit, notice not only where you came in, but there's also some exits here. And if you need hearing assisted devices, they're also outside to the right, as well as large print prayer books. So with that said, our hope is that everybody can follow along today. Don't worry if you don't always know the words. Sometimes a simple yababa or a bim bim bam is enough. And also, if you see someone who feels a little bit lost or you are lost yourself, don't be shy about turning to someone and asking, what page are we on? Where are we on the page? The goal is for us to all feel comfortable and all be able to follow along. So with that, we're going to begin. We're on page 74, the words of Ma Tovu.
Ma
Tovu. Ohalecha Yaakov, Ohalecha Yaakov,
Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. We jump to the bottom paragraph. Ani tfilati. Vani tfilati lecha Adonai, Adonai et rason Elohim, Elohim vero echastecha Anei be'emet Yishecha. We're gonna sing again. Ma tovu, how good it is to be together. Ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. One more time. Ma tovu, ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Exactly.
So in a moment, we're going to call Blake up as he receives for the first time his talit, his ritual garment. And you'll notice on his talis, on every talis, we have these fringes, which symbolize what it means to be a full-fledged adult member of the Jewish community, to take seriously the values, the rights, the obligations of being an adult in the Jewish people. And so I want to call him up to be joined by his father as he receives this talis and says the blessing for the first time in public.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehidatef b'tzitzit.
Congratulations. See? We're on page 76. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed the human being with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh working wondrously. Baruch atah Adonai, rofeh kol basar umafli la'asot, page 78.
Yeah. In other words, we're not just supposed to forget that our bodies and our soul are not miracles. I mean, we don't think about it that way at all, but we're invited to, especially on Shabbat. So take a moment, a deep breath, I don't know, an adjustment to your shoulders. Just take a moment. Breathe into the body and join me in these words, Elohai neshama shenatata bi torahi, the soul, God, that you've put in me. It is just exactly as it's supposed to be. Elohai neshama shenatata bi teorahi Elohai neshama shenatata bi teorahi Elohai neshama Elohai Elohai neshama shenatata bi Elohai neshama shenatata bi teorahi. Now what we get to do is change it up and sing la da da. Same idea, la da da. But join me on ya da da. Sing with me, ya da. Ya da. Same intention, just new words. Ya da da, ya da. Ya la da, ya da. One more time, little clue, you have to open up your mouths to let the sound come out. Once more. Elohai neshama shenatata bi teorahi. Baruch atah Adonai asher be'edo nefesh kol chai v'ruach kol b'sar ish.
In a moment, we're going to turn to page 80. And though instead of praying these traditional prayers, which speak about miracles big and small in our life, the ability to see, the ability to stand up, the ability to be free, we're going to add our own miracles to the mix. And so I want to just give you a chance to throw out things that you're thankful for, things that are big, things that are small, and we'll pray these things together. So raise your hand or call it out. What's something that you're thankful for? For family.
Perfect.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. For family. For health. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. For health. Somebody else. For friends. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. For friends. For family and toys. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. For family and toys. Page 86. A blessing for yes, a blessing for Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu asok b'divrei Torah. Page 88.
אלו דברים שלהם שיעור, שאדם אחר בהם בעולם הזה, והקרן קיימת לו לעולם הבא, ואלו הן
כיבוד אב ואם וגמילות חסדים, והשכמת בית המדרש שחרית וערבית, והכנסת אורחים וביקור חולים, והכנסת כלה וביית המת ועיון תפילה, והבאת שלום בין אדם לחברו, ותלמוד תורה כנגד כולם. We move forward in our prayer book, page 94.
ברוך שאמר והיה העולם,
ברוך הוא,
ברוך עושה בראשית,
ברוך אומר ועושה,
ברוך עוזר ומקיים,
ברוך מרחם על הארץ,
ברוך מרחם על הבריות,
ברוך משלם שכר טוב לרעיו,
ברוך הילד
וקיים לנצח.
Baruch Bodeh Umatzil, Baruch Shemo.
ברוך שמו, ברוך אתה אדוני, מלך מהולל, ותשבחו.
Page 96, Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat.
מזמור שיר ליום השבת.
You clap your hands if
טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון. מזמור שיר, מזמור שיר ליום השבת. טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון. להגיד בבוקר יכסתך באמונת בלילות, עלי עצור בעלי זבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. We're gonna try it again. המזמור שיר ליום השבת. טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון. One more time. המזמור שיר ליום השבת. טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך העליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון.
Chant responsively, page 97. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, Odi Alelucha Selah.
אשריהם שככה לו, אשריהם שאדוני אלוהיו.
Tehillah LeDavid, Arumecha Elohai HaMelech, V'avarcha Shimcha Le'olam Va'ed.
בכל יום אברכך, וללה שמך לעולם ועד.
Gadol Adonai Mula Meod, V'ligdulato Ein Cheker.
דור דור ישבח מעשיך, וגבורותיך יגידו.
Hadar Kivododecha, V'divrei Niflotecha Asicha.
וזונותיך יאמרו, וגדולתך אספחנה.
Zecher Rab Tuvecha Yabihu, V'tzidcha Dacha Yiranenu.
חנון ורחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדל חסד.
Tov Adonai Lakol, V'rachamav Al Kol Ma'asav.
יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך.
Kivod Malchutecha Yomeru, Ugvuratacha Yedaberu.
להודיע לבני האדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
Malchutecha Malchut Kol Amim, Umemshaltecha B'chol Dor V'ador.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכיפופים.
Einei Kol Elecha Yesaberu, V'ata Noten Lahem Et Ochlam Be'ito.
פותח את ידיך, ומשביע לכל חי רצון.
Tzadik Adonai B'chol Doracha, V'chasid B'chol Ma'asav.
קרוב אדוני לכל כואב, לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
Ritzon Yirei Yaseh, V'et Shavatam Yishma V'yoshiyem.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל הרשעים ישמיד.
Tehillat Adonai Yedaber Pi, V'yivarech Kol Basar Shem Kodsho Le'olam Va'ed.
V'anachnu
Nevarech Yah, Me'ata V'ad Olam. Hallelujah.
Hopefully that word sounds familiar. Doesn't take a Hebrew speaker to know a hallelujah, right? And this is the final psalm in the 150 set, the big shout at the end. This is all warm up, by the way. We haven't gotten to the real stuff. So we got to get warm.
Hallelujah.
Let's hear it. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Bikocho, bikocho. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Here we go again. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Biburota. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Kerol kulo. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Beteka shofar. Beteka shofar. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Benevel lechino. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
I don't hear you. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. בצלצלי שמה. Hallelujah, hallelujah. בצלצלי תרועה. כל הנשמה תהלליה, every soul. כל הנשמה תהלליה. כל הנשמה. What do they praise? Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
We rise, turning to page 106 for the Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל שמי רבה.
Amen.
ילמד ויברכותיה וימליך מלכותיה בחיי חול וביום החול ובחיי דחול בית ישראל בגלה בזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולם. יתברך וישתבח ויתועד ויאמר ויתעשה ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמדו קודשו. ולעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירה בעולמה ויאמרו
Amen. Page 108.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך. Together. ברוך ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
We're seated, page 110.
ברוך
אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם יוצר אור ובורא חושך עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהי ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם יוצר אור ובורא חושך עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מחלאו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. Page 112.
אהבה רבה אהבתנו אדוני אלוהינו חמלה גדולה ותרח חמלת עלינו בעבור אבותינו ואימותינו שבטחו בך שבטחו בך שבטחו בך ותלמדם חוקי חיים כן תכוננו ותלמידנו המרחם רחם עלינו המרחם רחם עלינו ותן בליבנו להבין להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע ללמוד וללמד לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך ואהבה והאר עינינו בתורתך לדבק ליבנו במצוותיך ויחד לבבינו באהבה וליראה את שמך ולא נבוש ולא ניכרם ולא ניכשל לעולם כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא פתחנו נגילה ונשמחה נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. הביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ ותוליכנו בממיות לארצנו
כי אל פועל ישועות אתה ובנו בחרת וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול לסלע באמת להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע
Israel, Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, Echad. Page 116.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בעם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Page 118. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם ונתנו על ציצית הכנף פתיל תכלת והיה לכם לציצית וריתם אותו וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם ולא תצורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם אלוהים. אני
Adonai Elohechem.
אדוני אלוהיכם.
On page 122, and we join together in that special prayer for freedom, Michamocha.
Ya ida ida ya ya la ya ya ida 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 ya la 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 ya la la ya ya la la ya la la ya la la ida mi khamoch ba'im Adonai. Join us, top of the page. Mi khamoch ba'im Adonai. Mi khamoch nedar b'kodesh. Nora tehiro lo severe. Nora tehiro lo severe. Shir chadasha shir chugeulim. לשמך על שפת הים יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. We try it one more time, but this time on yadada. Ya ida ida ya la ya la la. Ya ida ida ila ila la. Double clap. Ya la ila ya ila ila. Ya ila la. Ya la ya ila la.
And once again, if you're able, we'll invite you to rise. We're on the bottom of that same page.
צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל ופדחנו ממך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל ברוך את אדוני גל ישראל. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה, אתה גיבור עולם אדוני מחיה מתים אתה הרע להושיע, מוריד הטל מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישוע, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשמש שמתישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מרוב כל הארץ אדיר אדירנו אדוני, אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, הוא ישמענו ברחם לעיני כל חי. ואני אדוני אלוהיך, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון לדור ודור. הללויה, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד דוד לך. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד דוד לך. ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד דוד לך. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד דוד לך. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם, לעולם ועד. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם, לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue through page 142, and you can be seated when you're finished. It's customary to pray for peace always after we pray silently. We're on page 141. And Blake, I want to call up your Aunt Jamie to read that prayer now. Oh. Okay. Come on up.
Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes.
Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of our world. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people with peace.
Thank you so much. We're just going to take another moment and lift our voices up in those words in the Hebrew on the top of page 140. May we know this peace, this goodness, this grace, this compassion for all the brokenness. May we know it in our lives. May we sing it into the world. Please join me.
Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Sim shalom. Sim shalom, tova uvracha, sim shalom, tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim sim shalom, tova uvracha, tova uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amecha. One more time. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Tova, bring goodness and blessing, uvracha. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Teach us how to tova uvracha.
In a moment, we're going to move into Seder Kriyat HaTorah, which you can find on page 244. And a number of honors to give out at this point. To open our ark, Blake, we're going to call your brothers, Bryce and Brooks, as well as calling Jamie back up with Jacob Shin. And to pass our Torah, it's customary to pass our Torah l'dor v'ador, from generation to generation, from grandparent to grandparent, from grandparent to parent to child. So we're going to call up your whole generations of family, your grandparents, Moshe, Leah, Alan, and Beth, your parents, Michael and Amy, and then Blake, you as well. So we rise together.
We're on page 244. Please rise. You guys go up with the rabbi. Go up there. Ein kamocha Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kemasecha, malchutecha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor vador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yiten. Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim heitiv avirtzoncha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim. Ki v'cha levad bataknu, melech eram v'nisa, Adon olamim. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, udevar Adonai merushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kdushato. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlul Adonai Yiti, Uneramema Shemo Yagdav. Yadai, dai, 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 yadai, dai, 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 yadai, dai, 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 yadai, dai, yadai, dai, 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 yadai, dai, 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 yadai, dai, 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 dai. Yai, dai, 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 yai, dai, 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 yai, dai, dai, dai. Yai dai dai ya dai 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 ya dai 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 ya dai 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 dai. Ya dai 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 dai. Ya dai dai dai. Ya dai dai dai. Yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. Wait, this is not it.
So Shabbat Shalom. So very soon we're going to hear our Torah read, but it's customary not just to read Torah, but to contextualize it, to make it relevant, to make it meaningful. And in every generation, for thousands of years, our Jewish people have just done just that. They've wrestled with this text and they've made it speak to their day and age. And so today, as Blake becomes bar mitzvah, he will be that next teacher in that chain of tradition. So it's my pleasure to call him up now.
Shabbat Shalom. My Torah portion is called Parashat Ki Tatzeh. It has a ton of laws, and today I want to talk about one of them. If someone's property is lost, what would you do? It also depends on what the lost property was. Some people would decide that they would keep the lost property without any hesitation to find the owner. On the other hand, some people would try and find something on the lost property to see if there's any way to identify who owns it and to find them. Then they would do everything to return it. According to my proportion, there is a right answer to this question. As I will soon read, the Torah tells us, "You shall not watch your brother's ox or sheep run away and ignore it. You must return it to your brother. And if your brother is not close to you and you don't know him, then you shall bring it home to your house, and it shall be with you until your brother claims it, and you shall give it back to him. And so shall you do with his donkey, and so shall you do with his garment. And so shall you do with every lost thing that belongs to your brother, which he has lost and you have found." In other words, if you find something, you should do everything you can to bring it back to them. You don't have a choice. However, it's not always so easy to just return something. Let's say you're waiting on a ride in a crowded line and you see $20 on the ground. Should you return the money? Yes. But can you always do that? No. You would be entitled to keep this money if there is no way you could find the rightful owner of the $20. But let's say you're in Walmart and you find a wallet and there is an ID in it. The person that found the wallet would return it to the customer service, and the people working at Walmart would make an announcement and call out the name on the ID to see if the person is still in the store. In that case, you can find its owner, and it's on you to return it. Jewish law has taken into account these details. According to Jewish law, there are two things you should look out for to know whether to keep something you find. The first is you should look for something called a siman. A siman is a symbol that makes your item different from other similar items. Let's say you lost a cowboy hat and has BH on it. Then you would have to try and find the person that has the initials BH, because BH points you to a specific kind of person, since not everyone has those initials. It means you have to work harder to find the owner before you give up. The second thing to think about is called Ye'ush. Ye'ush means the owner found out they lost something and they don't care about it anymore. It literally means despair, and it happens when they no longer want to look for it. When this happens, you can keep the item. So let's say you lost $1. It would most likely take people a few seconds to do Ye'ush. But let's say you lost $100. Most people would try to retrace their steps and try to find the $100. So you have to wait a while and look for them before you give up and keep the money if it is a larger sum. All of this boils down to one important idea. Returning lost property is very important. We should care about returning someone's lost belongings, whether it is sentimental value or monetary value, because you don't know whether that thing matters to them or not. For example, imagine a heirloom was lost and meant the world to a family who lost it. It may look like junk to you, but it matters for them. For example, I have a football that was signed by a whole Giants roster. Someone who doesn't know anything about football found it. They might just view it as a dirty, scribbled on ball, but it means something to me. Also, if you find money, you also don't know if that was someone's rent money or money to go put food on the table for their family. You caring enough to get someone back their lost belongings show the kind of character that you have. Shows that you care for others and are empathetic individuals. It is important to return money because you don't know what the other person is going through. They could be going through tough times. I know the power of this well. I once found $5 on the ground during camp one year. My mom asked me what I should do with it. She gave me the choice to take it or to try and find the person who lost it. I went to the director of camp and she made an announcement saying that if someone's lost the money, they should come to the main office. The counselor who lost it came to the office, but she ended up letting me keep it for my honesty.
However, I learned in the way she was touched by the action that returning lost objects matter to people. In conclusion, make sure that you always try and find the person that lost or missing item. If you cannot find the person or there is nothing to help you find the person, then you could keep it. But if there are initials or on the item or there is any way that you could find the person that lost the item, do everything you can to return it. In the end, my Torah portion teaches us to make sure to always do the right thing and try to make sure the item the owner lost gets back to the owner. Shabbat Shalom.
So we're going to move now into the actual reading of our Torah. Just a note before we move into the reading of our Torah, we've got 3 different readings, 3 different readers. You can find, by the way, the words if you want to follow along on that little packet that you have with you. I've been noticing there's a lot of cell phones out. Know, by the way, that we have a recording of this going on as we speak. And so we're going to ask that no one take pictures, no one record. Should you want to watch later, should you want mementos, you can always go onto YouTube, and this is archived onto YouTube, and you can watch again and you can see again. So with that, we're going to move now into the actual Seder Kriyat Torah, the actual reading of our Torah. And so for our first Aliyah, I want to call up Ya'amod, Moshe ben David Halevi v'Chanal Aliyah Torah, Blake's grandfather, Moshe.
ברוך אתה אדוני המבורך, ברוך אתה המבורך בעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. And reading our Torah is going to be our past president, Ken Cohen.
Amen. Lo tire et shor achicha, o et seyo nidachim, v'talam tamehem, hashev teshivem leachicha, v'yam lo karov achicha, elecha v'lo yidato, v'yasavto el toch beitecha, v'haya imcha, ad dirosh achicha oto, v'ashev oto lo, V'chein ta'aseh lechamoro, v'chein ta'aseh l'simlato, v'chein ta'aseh l'chol avedat achicha, asher tavad mimenu umtzata, lo tuchal lehitalem.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו את תורת אמת, וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
So Moshe, we'll have you stay up because you're our next reader. And for our next Aliyah, Blake, we're going to call up your parents. Ya'amdu, Bracha bat Alan v'Beth, Doron ben Moshe Halevi v'Leil Aliyah Torah.
Baruch Adonai, Adonai Hava Rach.
Baruch Adonai Ambarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher Bachar Banu Michol Haim V'Natan Leinu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Notena HaTorah.
לא תראה את תזמור להתהלם, לא תראה את תזמור אחיך, או שורו נפלים בדרך, והתעלמת מהם, הקם תקים עמו. לא יהיה כלי גבר על אישה, ולא ילבש גבר שמלת אישה, כי תאהב את אדוני אלוהיך כל עושה אליה. כי יקרא כז ציפור לפניך בדרך, וכל עץ או על הארץ אפרוזים או ביצים, והאם רובצות על האפרוחים או על הביצים, לא תיקח האם על הבנים שלו.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lenu Torat emet v'cha yeh olam nata botokenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
So you guys can stay up here. And Blake, we're going to call you up formally now as bar mitzvah, as you prepare to chant and bless our Torah. Yamod, 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 Zachariah ben Doron Halevi, Bracha lali ala Torah, Chazak ve'amatz.
Baruch et Baruch et Adonai Hamvorak.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarak le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarak le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Shaleach tishalach et ha'em v'et habanim tikach lak leman yetavlak ki tevneh bayit hadash v'asita ma'aki legageha v'lo tasim damim beveitecha ki yipol hanofel memenu. Lo tezra karmeha kil ayim. Pentigdash hamila hazera asher. Tizra utivuhat hakarem. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'hayeh olam nata betoheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. So now we get to take a moment to join with you in a blessing for joyous firsts. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. סימן טוב, מזל טוב, מזל טוב, וסימן טוב, סימן טוב, מזל טוב, מזל טוב, וסימן טוב, סימן טוב, מזל טוב, מזל טוב, וסימן טוב, יהי לנו, יהי לנו, יהי לנו, ולכל ישראל, יהי לנו, יהי לנו, ולכל ישראל.
So we need some people to pick up some candy. Come on up. You can grab some. Any kids who are here, any teens who are here, we need all the candy up before we can go on. We're just going to ask you not to eat it in here yet. So before we move forward, we need all the candy up. I see some kids in the back. Come grab some. We're just going to ask that you do not eat it in this room. So just come grab it. You can eat it later. There you go. I'm going to take this for myself.
Blake, this is a day filled with joy and experience each of us will remember forever. Thank you for being you, a fearless competitor, a dedicated student, athlete, brother, cousin, friend, son, and grandson. Continue to be thoughtful to others, a friend others admire, a son that we look up to. Mama and I love your commitment to excellence. Life requires commitment to excel, to reach your dreams, but it also pushes you to accept setbacks and come out stronger and better, to learn from all the challenges you will face.
I couldn't agree more with what your father has stated.
I would like to add that Dad and I couldn't be prouder of you on this most important day. As one chapter closes, another chapter begins. It's our greatest honor to witness your dedication, enthusiasm, thirst for life, to always strive to be the person that others can look up to. Dad and I know it hasn't been an easy ride to get to this day, as there were so many obstacles these past few years in the world. However, it shows your strength and dedication not only overcome the hurdles you face, but to rise above them. Just know you have us, your brothers, your grandparents, your wonderful, caring family, and friends here today, and others that couldn't attend. You have a support system, a blessing that will continue to move you forward. But your best investment is always an investment in yourself.
Mom and Dad will be your biggest cheerleaders. Dream for the sky, and no doubt you'll reach the moon. Mazel tov, and may you always know you will be strengthened by the love of those around you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to move now into our prayer for healing. It's customary to pray for those who are in need of healing, those in need of a refuah shlema, a complete healing of body, mind, soul, and spirit. And so, as my eyes go around the room, I'm going to invite you to share names of people for whom you're thinking. We're on page 253. Mi shebera avoteinu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We turn to page 259 for a special prayer for the state of Israel, and I'd like to call up Alan Clore and Blake, your Aunt Michelle, to read that now.
Boker Tov. O Heavenly One, protector and redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with their good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I invite us all to rise now as we prepare to lift and dress our Torah.
זאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים ותגל הארץ. יירם הים, יירם הים, יירם הים ומלואו, יירם הים, יירם הים, יירם הים ומלואו.
We're seated together. And Blake, we want to call you back up because you're going to read from a different section of the Hebrew Bible, the book of Isaiah, chapter 54, which we can find the Haftarah in the back on the back page, I think it's labeled as number 3. And we're going to join together first in the blessings all together, and then Blake will read the translation, and then we'll join together in the blessing afterwards. So if you want to follow along on the blessings, you can find those on page number 254. So we join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratza b'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Habocher b'Torah uv-Moshe avdo uv-Yisrael amo uv-Nvi'ei ha'emet b'tzedek.
Shout, O barren one, you who bore no child, shout aloud for joy, you who did not travail, for the children of the wife forlorn shall outnumber those of the espoused, said Adonai. Enlargen the site of your tent, extend the size of your dwelling, do not stint. Lengthen the ropes and drive the pegs firm, for you shall spread out to the right and the left. Your offspring shall dispossess nations and shall people the desolate towns. Fear not, you shall not be shamed. Do not cringe, you shall not be disgraced. For you shall forget the reproach of your mouth, of your youth, and remember no more the shame of your widowhood, for he who made you will espouse you. His name is Adonai of hosts. The Holy One of Israel will redeem you. He is called God of all the earth.
Page 254 on the bottom. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam sor kol haolamim sadik b'chol hadorot hayal hane'eman haomer v'yoseh hamadaber u'mekayem shekol devarav emet b'tzedek al haTorah v'al ha'avodah v'al hanvi'im v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh shenatat lanu Adonai Eloheinu L'kedusha u'limenucha lechavod u'letifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'mevarechim otach yitbarak shimcha b'fi kol hai tamid le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabat. I'll invite us now to rise, and you can take a nice deep breath and go take a seat as we prepare to return our Torah to the Ark. And I want to call Jack, Axel, Violet, Aunt Michelle, and Uncle Mike up to open our Ark.
Come on, we need you. We need your help.
למחזיקימה מתומכיה מיושר דרכיה נרחי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום Hashivenu Adonai Elecha menashuva Chadish Chadish Yameinu Chadish Yameinu Kekedem. You may be seated. Well done.
We're seated together. So Blake, Yasher Koach. Amazing words, amazing job. And it's my job each and every Shabbat to get a chance to respond to the kind of really thoughtful teachings and words that you shared throughout the course of your Devar Torah. So you spoke about this really important idea, something that, there's chapters written about in Jewish law codes about the nature of what it means to return lost objects. And it's not easy, as you spoke about. What if you don't know the owner? What if it's too difficult for you? And you spoke about the two criteria really beautifully that one uses to figure out whether they can keep an object or whether they have to return it. The idea of a siman, does it have some kind of symbol that's identifying? A dollar bill is a dollar bill is a dollar bill. Whereas, as you said, a hat with a name in it or a wallet, that's a real siman. And then you spoke about the idea of yaush, this kind of strange mental exercise that you do, which the idea is that if you take something that you find on the ground and it belongs to someone else, you technically are stealing, except if they've given up hope of ever getting it back. And so there's these kind of almost calculations in Jewish law code to help you figure out how valuable does a thing need to be before everyone is willing to undergo yaush and give it back. Something, as you said, like a dollar, the minute it's gone, they probably did yaush if they realized it. And so even if they haven't yet realized the dollar's gone, you can keep it because retroactively it's true that they probably would immediately give up hope. But things for which they wouldn't, you gotta try. You have to assume that they're gonna hold on hope for a while before they throw up their hands and say, I guess I'm gonna mourn this thing that is lost. Well, I've been thinking a little bit in anticipation of today about what it means to really undergo communal responsibility. And one of the amazing things about our Torah is that sometimes it speaks twice. You're in the book of Deuteronomy. That's what you read from, Blake, which is really basically Moses reiterating all the important stuff that he wants the Jewish people to know that they've learned throughout their time wandering in the desert for 40 years before they enter into the promised land. And it turns out that the idea of returning lost objects appears twice in the Torah, once earlier in the book of Exodus and later in the book of Deuteronomy. And when it appears in your portion, it speaks about friendship, right? When you see your neighbor, when you see your friend's ox or donkey that's lost, you got to do everything to return it. But what's interesting is that when it talks about it in the book of Exodus, it actually says when you see your enemy's donkey or ox that is lost, you have to do everything you can to return it, which is really interesting because actually that changes the whole calculus. If I care about the person for whom that donkey or that ox is lost, I'm going to do everything I can to return, to help, to be there for them. But what happens if it's somebody who's not nice to me? What happens if it's somebody who gets under my skin? What if it's someone that I am pretty sure that if they found my donkey or ox, they wouldn't return it to me? Well, according to our tradition, communal responsibility means that you are under an obligation whether or not you like that person. And that's the essence of Jewish law in general. Jewish law, by the way, doesn't say that you must love your enemy. It says you must love your neighbor, but not that you love your enemy. That, by the way, is the revolution of the New Testament. If you've read Jesus' Sermon from the Mount in the book of Matthew, Jesus very clearly says, love your enemy. Judaism doesn't do that. Judaism doesn't care whether or not you love your enemy. All Judaism cares is, do you live ethically in relationship with your enemy? And so feel what you want about that person that you don't like. Obligation means acting for the other. It does not mean feeling for the other, which means that whether you like someone or not, whether you know someone or not, there's a series of baseline rules of what it means to live in society, to be in society, to take care of others in society. Now, there's this idea in communal responsibility, which is called arevut, and I've spoken about this before. It means, by the way, to be a guarantor for another person. Now, if you've ever lived in New York City and not made 40 times your rent, you know what it means to call up your parents in your 20s, or sadly, maybe in your 40s in this day and age, and ask them if they might co-sign on your lease, should you not be able to fulfill that obligation. Well, ethics in Judaism functions in the same way. I am responsible for my neighbor's actions. And my neighbor's problems are my problems, which means that we are all mixed up. We are woven into this, as MLK said, this thread, this tapestry of eternal destiny. And so because of that, if someone is suffering, it becomes my suffering too. And I must do everything to correct it, whether or not I like them, whether or not I know them. So whether you see someone on the street who's begging for money, whether or not there's someone who is your neighbor who is suffering, whether or not even you notice that the bully on the playground themselves is being bullied. The idea is not to nod your head and say that they're getting just rewards. The idea is to understand that their problems become yours and you are obligated to fix it. Now, obligation is not something that we understand so easily. We in the modern age love to be autonomous, to say, don't tell me what to do, don't tread on me, don't stand in before me and lecture me. But the counterculture of religion is that religion actually does put obligations on you. Religion looks you in the face and say, we expect things of you even if you don't want to do them. And so the goal in life, whether or not you're a religious individual or not, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Christian, whether you're Muslim, is to find opportunities where you feel obligated to do things that you don't want to. Not just to return that lost property to someone that you like, but to realize that whether or not you do, you are in a society that demands it of you. And understanding that means that you will act ethically no matter the circumstance. Like, I want to invite you up to the bima now. I want to say to you a few things. The first is that standing here in the journey that you took to get here was not an easy thing. I remember fielding the call from your parents a little over a year ago, where your parents said, look, we've got 3 sons, one of which is going into 7th grade, and we would love for him to become bar mitzvah. What that meant, Blake, is that you had to sprint to get up to speed. And you did. And there are many students that I have long histories with, that I, God willing, if I'm here for long enough, that I sang with them in preschool and then taught them in kindergarten and then was with them in grade school and then worked with them on their B'nai Mitzvah. And you came in, and I thought to myself, I'm going to get to know him, but tangentially, not as well as maybe I would others. But you jumped in, and your dad actually called me up and said, look, he actually doesn't know Hebrew. I'm wondering what we can do. And I got to know you last summer because I got to teach you Hebrew. And then I got to know you through this process. But I also got to know that you have a certain tenacity about yourself because you and I tend to always start running races together at the same time. So we've had 2 races where you and I have run together, both the race here in the spring and also a 5K, which was last weekend. And I watched the tenacity that you brought to every one of those processes. Right? That you weren't scared away going into 7th grade, not having any of this background and just jumping in full-heartedly and saying, I want to do this. I want to learn this. I'm going to be a bar mitzvah, even if I haven't yet had years and years of Torah training. And then I watched your tenacity going out like a fiend during these races and holding on till the end, running so hard that you basically collapse on the finish line because you know what it means to give your all to something. And that's an incredible trait to have. And I have no doubt that you're just going to give your all in what you do in general. If you bring that tenacity that you brought on the race course and the tenacity that you brought by giving up a huge part of your summer last summer to learn Hebrew, that tenacity is going to help you when you do face that person who is suffering, when you do need to figure out how you're going to bring that money to the person who might have lost it, when you are going to build that ethical world, that internal strength that you have, that willingness to say yes indeed, that tenacious attitude, that is one of the things that makes you special. And that is one of the things we admire about you. That's what allowed you to reach this day. And that's what's going to allow you to be successful in life. And so hold on to that, because that's an amazing thing. And the goal in Like You're Running is to allow yourself to just go and to have the faith that you'll hold on till the end. You have every time I've seen you do it, and you will continue, I'm sure. So we want to offer you a blessing, the oldest blessing that exists in our tradition. And I want to call up Cantor Greenberg, and I want to call up our clergy associate, Ronnie Pressman, as we offer you this blessing.
So we want to allow our whole bodies to share blessing through us to Blake. So lift up your hands, even if it feels funny, so that we can share our warmth with you. May
God bless you and keep you. May God cause God's face to shine upon you and give you grace. May God always smile upon you, granting you a life of wholeness and peace.
May it be God's will, and let us all sing Amen.
So stay up here for just a moment as I call a member of our Board of Trustees, Diana Chipkin, up to offer you a few gifts and some words of welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi. Hi, congratulations from the board and me too on a job well done. Lots of great goodies. Thank you.
So we're going to move now into the concluding section of our service, page 282, as together we rise for Elenu.
Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzod, velo samanu kamishpachot adama, shelo samchelkenu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
We remain standing, turning to page 294, as our thoughts turn to those that we've loved and who we've lost. As my eyes go around the room, I'll invite you to share names of people for whom you're thinking. We join together. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, V'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayachon v'yomachon v'chayet l'chol Beit Yisrael. V'hagala v'zman karib v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam olmei almaya. Yiparach v'yishabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechamata. Damiram b'yama v'imru amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav. Huya aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen. There we go.
Oseh shalom b'mramav. Huya aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael
ועל כל יושבי, ועל כל יושבי תבל, ויאמרו, אמן. One more time, עושה שלום. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל, ויאמרו אמן, אמן, amen. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. So we're going to move outside as we make Kiddush and Motzi, and because I want to introduce them in the moment, I want to call Leah Halevi and Avner Heshkiyahu to the podium right up there. So let's make our way quickly outside, and remember to return your prayer books, and we'll make Kiddush and Motzi outside.